like to use those numbers to be able to help people so that they can move forward and try to help their business grow, to gain profits, get stabilized, have organization. A lot of times it can seem like that's a simple thing, but a lot of times people miss the boat, or they just start to get so physically busy that they can't keep track of stuff themselves. So my target customer is somebody who they want financial control of their business and that they know where they stand at the end of each month, so that if they are getting ready to go for a business loan at a bank or a lending institution, that they're prepared and they know where they're at. They're not thinking that, well, I did make $100,000, but leaving out the fact that after all expenses, maybe they were down to just $20,000. And so that's not going to look as appealing to a loan officer. So you want to know exactly where you stand at all and every times. It's very important. In terms of different from my competition, I mean, there are 10 million accountants out there, all sizes, big firms, small firms, what have you. But I see myself as different because I'm a very flexible person, and I'm very much in tune with, you could say, new age type companies, such as instead of like a medical doctor, a naturopath, or an acupuncturist, that people don't necessarily think of them being in the mainstream, but more and more people are going to them, and it has to be paid attention to. My marketing strategies, as it says here, it's typically word of mouth, especially for taxes. It's easy to use social media, Facebook, Twitter, so forth and so on. But when you're talking about bookkeeping and somebody's private financial information, that's more behind the scenes and more word of mouth. A colleague, a friend, a relative. Unless somebody goes online and they go to one of those websites where they try to link a client with an accountant. But then in a lot of those cases, that could be like $4,000 or $5,000 you have to pay, and there's not even any guarantee. So it's a very fickle nature when it comes to the bookkeeping, accounting analysis. Whereas with taxes, whether somebody wants to do it or not, it's like you got to get them done. And even more so if you get that wonderful letter from the IRS or any State Department of Revenue. And then that gives a person great motivation to go ahead and get it taken care of. Success-wise, money is great, but all I can really say is that it's hollow if you don't really feel like you've really helped the person out. And it's a great feeling when somebody says, thank you, you got me out of this trouble because I was really in a bind. And that's something that, it's priceless, like that commercial. And, nothing can top that feeling. To know that, something inside of me really went and helped that individual or that, that small business. So it's a great feeling. Future vision, I would like the business to continue to be self-sustaining, leave a legacy to my children so they can hopefully take it forward, or I guess they can turn around and just sell it, but I would rather that they help to continue that legacy. And I just want to continue to help small businesses to grow. There's a lot of times where a company starts up, they have great ideas, great potential, great talent, but within 5 years they wind up having to close down their front doors. And with the bookkeeping and the accounting analysis, I can help to prevent that. Sometimes it could be very simple in terms of just making sure to pay your sales tax before the interest grows on that and accumulates. Other times it could be something more complex, but it's something that can still look at to be able to help that individual so that they're not up at 3 in the morning worrying about their business. They can be asleep so that they can get up in the morning, focus on their business, and not on the books just being all over the place. And my challenge, one basic challenge, is to continue to get ideal clients. And when I say ideal clients, I'm talking about that the communication being effective between myself and a client in terms of making sure that I get the information that I need to do the work for them, and that I'm not having to chase the person down to get that information. And it's not necessarily that a client does it on purpose, because when a client gets really busy, it can wind up out of town, what have you, and you got to have a system set up in place to make sure to get that information on a timely, consistent basis, because that just benefits that customer and myself to make my job easier and more effective. That saves the client money. So, again, Kosi Johnson, Johnson Consultants and Associates, help small business owners to get that financial control, to continue to profit and grow, and have a smile on their face instead of a frowny face. Thank you.
Questions? Kosi, what type of marketing strategy have you utilized thus far to try to compete against like an H&R Block? Reference trying to reach out to small business owners, and what have you utilized that has been productive for you to this?
For something such as H&R Block, I've used a lot of social media and networking, such as coming to events like this, Business Network International, the local chambers to get the word out. Sometimes I might go ahead and be very basic and actually maybe target a certain industry, such as recently with wedding event planners. I went ahead and sent out direct mail to different owners and to see what feedback that I would get back. So I try to use different methods. You can't stick to just one. A lot of times word of mouth can wind up being the most powerful, especially with the bookkeeping and accounting analysis. But I try to use a multiple method to try to get people to the front door.
Do you find that you've been competitive as far as your price structure with the services that you provide, again, against like an H&R Block or a larger tax business? I'm sure that's a tough balance there for you as a small business owner yourself. So
right, it's been pretty good, and H&R Block, because even though we're in the day and age of e-filing, H&R Block will still charge by the actual paper form, even though they may not have to deal with one piece of paper at all. And so that definitely makes them much more expensive, where in some cases I could possibly charge, if they charge $500, I can do so for probably $400. It just depends upon the situation and how, because I just go by the amount of work that I do. And that usually beats out H&R Block or Jackson Hewitt pretty easily, especially for taxes.
Right.
You had a question?
I'm glad you mentioned BNI. I'm an active member of BNI, and I will say, since I opened my business a little under a year ago, leads from BNI, both primary and secondary leads from them, referrals, have accounted for probably 75% of my business.
Okay.
Now, if I find that that's a very effective tool, especially if you're working business to business,
Right.
because it's all small business owners that are looking to increase their business. So,
Right.
you know, both as a source of primary customers, although we're really not supposed to target people that way, but, you know, it's a good, their whole philosophy of giver's gain, which means if I help you, you'll help me.
Right.
It works very effectively.
Right, the mutual network. And if I don't know if I overheard correctly or not, but I thought I heard you mention Ms. Terry Gibson Schultz.
Yes.
I know her well.
You were talking about your ideal client and communication between your client and yourself. What systems are generally effective for communicating with an accountant? I know that, you know, people have their business and their business is their business, and
Right.
you know, your business is accounting. How do we communicate as a business owner to you as an accountant to have what we've done? How does that
Sure.
work for you?
Well, the first thing is when I mentioned about myself being flexible, because every business owner is different, even if they're in the exact same industry. Some people prefer communication person to person, to really get things out and communicate. Some people, they're fine with just texting on a cell phone and sending things electronically. So it just really depends upon the situation. But however it is that I make sure to always follow up. You know, an example could be I have one individual who's a general contractor, and he's in and out of town often. And he let me have access to his business banking account so that I could go ahead and get all of the profits, all of the expenses. But sometimes some deposits that are made brings a question mark to my head. And then I have to get a hold of him. For example, he took out equity out of his house so that he could use to invest in his company. But when you look at his bank account, it looks like it's just a basic deposit. And so I need to make sure, because if I just assumed it was a profit from his company, that would have been an extra $20,000 in taxes that he would have had to pay. So that's why I always communicate and make sure as to exactly what's what. This is not the business to be assuming things about, because it can cost people money. So.
Excuse me.
Bless you. Any other questions? All right.
What services you provide outside of what H&R Block or Jacksonville would provide that you would for clients to come to your business?
Oh, bless you. For taxes specifically itself, as what you just mentioned, those two companies, I do the tax preparation, but I also do, which is year-round tax planning. You know, a person could say that tax preparation is after December 31st. Tax planning is before December 31st. And providing that planning, the combination of that and the bookkeeping can help to make a business owner more efficient. If you've ever heard of the term end of the year financials, that's really just a nice way of saying people who didn't keep track of stuff throughout the year, and now it's the end of the year and they're scrambling to get ready for tax season and hope that nothing's been missed that they could use for, you know, a deduction or what have you. So that the tax planning is a very big thing that I provide, and that's on a year basis.
Excuse me. Have you found in working with your current clients that there's a particular maybe tax break that most small business owners do not know about, and you're seeing that common thread and you're able to share that with them? And if so, what tax break is that?
It depends on the clients, but I know one thing, even though it's very basic, that sticks out a lot, is the whole concept about meals and entertainment being deductible. And they are deductible if it's business related, and it's typically 50% of what the total is. But if a person goes out of town on a business trip and they have those same meals and entertainment, it changes and actually becomes 100% instead of 50.
Because they're out of town.
Right, but some people can go ahead and still put that into that meals and entertainment category and lose out on events.
At 50%.
Right,
Okay.
and wind up losing out. That's something that I've seen a few times. Kind of surprising, but yeah, I've definitely seen it.
Okay.
I know you mentioned you want to sustain your business, but what strategies are you putting in place to grow your business?
I guess one of the best ways to put it is basically to plant as many seeds as possible. Very rarely will you have somebody who you talk to and they're ready to pay for services like within 24 hours. A lot of times a person wants to kind of get to know you, kind of see what you're doing. So if I plant that seed, now, maybe within 6 months, I might hear from that person. And in some cases, I'll think that person has maybe moved to another planet or what have you. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, they'll call me, and maybe 6 other people that they know then will call me also too. So I like to try to, in different areas with the marketing, like the lady had asked me about, and plant those seeds, because eventually over time, it does come about.
I just want to ask, have you talking about strategy, have you considered like the online platform, in the sense that there are different online platforms where small businesses like yourself can actually, market yourself to a broader group of people. For example, I know about the Guru. There's one called Guru site platform, and also Fever platform. I know your target market is here locally, but at the same time, so you can get clients from all over the world that need accounting, taxes, and stuff like that online. So have you ever considered using platform like that to actually help you grow your business?
Well, in terms of thinking of online, I've never used that specific, but I have done some webinars online, and actually my best tax bookkeeping client is just outside of Cleveland, Ohio. So I actually do virtually around the country already. And that just kind of helps to bring a balance in terms of what I'm dealing with and who I'm dealing with here in Fayetteville, Cumberland County, North Carolina. The webinars are pretty good, and then just the social media in general, because somebody can say, hey, tell me a little bit about your services, and over a period of time, eventually, they may say, hey, do you have any time available for me? So, but not specifically the Guru that you said?
Yeah, there's one called the Guru sites, and there's another one, Fever. I know that because I used to they call it like I can't remember the way, but I used to use those 2 sites, and I get clients telling, even up to now, they're still telling me, oh, can you do a break-even analysis for me, and stuff like that? Can you do these? And yes, you just set your price, and when they come up there, they just, they know what your price is, and people rate you. Like once you complete the tags, they rate you, and that kind of help you grow, because the more people that rate you positively online, everybody else can contact you. I have a guy contact me from Nigeria, from Kenya, saying they need their business plans or something done. So yeah, it's a good platform just to to make additional income.
I'll definitely look into that. And any little thing to help, because it's good to be diversified, in whatever kind of business that we have. So I thank you for that, because I had never heard of that before. guess that just goes to show that just when you think you've seen and heard it all, and but yet here comes something else, and you just proved it. Anything else?
Sure.
Hmm?
I really appreciate that you mentioned tax planning and that you really help your clients take a forward look to what their taxes will look like. As personally, as a financial planner,
Mhm.
I appreciate that a lot. And I'm also curious to know what your approach is to assisting your clients either in helping them know that they can deduct, things from their taxes for instance, for the retirement accounts,
Mhm.
and helping them be aware that that is an opportunity, or what is your approach to handling those kinds of tax planning situations?
Basically, the same thing of just communicating back and forth what's gonna benefit my client.
Yeah.
You know, everybody has different situations. I'm sure you're probably aware of the fact as a financial advisor that there's a lot of times where people don't necessarily want to, but they have to file a 6-month extension because they still haven't gotten their K-1s back yet. And it's happening more and more and more. But while they're waiting, I'll kind of look at some things and, I'll say, well, okay, we can't do too much for this year, but if we're looking forward to next year, maybe let's consider this or that or what have you. Yeah, it's definitely. And then with the IRAs, contribution to an IRA is typically a deduction. And I actually do have one client that they will have very little tax taken out of their paycheck. But then they'll offset that amount by taking an extra amount and contribute it to the IRA so that it's a buffer against that extra tax when tax time comes. At least until that loophole comes to an end from the government and the senators, then you have to try to think of something else to do. But yeah, you're definitely right.
That's the last question. What can the community do for you?
What can the community do for me? Put my name out there, bring me some more good, consistent, stable clients. No one is perfect, but like I said, but the more smooth that communication can be and the transfer of information, the more that it benefits everybody involved. So anybody that you talk to, mention my name, have them give me a call, an email, what have you. No need to be shy. That's what the community can do for me. Thank you.
Thank you.